Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the OVERPOSITIVE Critic. In this episode, I'm going to be covering a movie I saw last night in theaters. It is Godzilla Minus One. I'm a pretty big fan of Godzilla, although I've only been, really into him since, August. But I went and saw it with my older brother, who is way more into Godzilla with me than me, and he and I agreed that it was probably the best Godzilla movie of all time. So let's get into it. Godzilla Minus One follows a veteran who fled his duties in World War II, and after that, he went ahead and, spoilers, he got attacked by Godzilla on Oda Island, I think it's called. So, the movie actually opens with him flying back onto Oda Island, claiming that his plane was all messed up. And he's a kamikaze pilot, which means he's sent into duty to just fight until he dies. And so Godzilla shows up, and he's, way smaller. He's more of, a Godzillasaurus here, which is a different thing than Zilla from Godzilla 1998. Godzillasaurus is from, I think, GMK. But moving on from that, he goes and attacks Oda Island and kills everyone on it, and literally that sequence may be better than everything the MonsterVerse has done, ever. So, yeah, that's just, comparing it to the MonsterVerse purely, this movie is literally, 12 million times better than the entirety of the MonsterVerse. And so, the main character, whose name is Koichi, he freezes up again, and he does not kill Godzilla with his 200 millimeter gun. And so, yeah, because he's scared, I guess, I don't know. But, yeah, and then everyone on the island dies because he didn't act fast. I mean, obviously the 200 millimeter gun probably wouldn't have actually killed Godzilla, but it might have scared him away. Anyways, after that, he comes home to find that it was all his fault, that his entire city had been, destroyed by, the U.S. military, which this is the first Japanese Godzilla movie, not counting the anime movies, since 2016. So 7 years later. And this is not, connected to any other Godzilla movies. It's a complete reboot, like Shin Godzilla was, which I might cover that later on the podcast. But, yeah, everyone's mad at him, but eventually he meets this girl who, has a baby. And the baby's like, what's up? And so is the lady. And then they just, kind of live together after that. She invites herself to live with him. And he just kind of lets it happen. And eventually he gets this job destroying mines from that were left from the war. And so he goes on this boat that cuts mines that are chained to the seabed, and then they shoot it with a gun. And this is a big part of the movie. They're from 99% of this movie and Godzilla action in this movie, they're out at sea, which I thought was really cool. And so Godzilla and everyone else goes ahead and, I don't know what I was going there. I'm just going to restart on what I was saying. They are destroying mines and stuff when this is actually a new concept, they see dead deep-sea fish, which is the indicator in this movie that Godzilla is coming, which I thought was pretty cool. And so like, the main character, Koichi, is all freaked out about this. And this is actually a little later than what I was describing before. This is like a couple mind trips later and like a couple months later. No, this movie is not months long. It's just, that's not the reason I've been gone for so long from the podcast. But yeah, he goes ahead and, like, they decide to try and use the mines to kill Godzilla. Well, actually, it was government orders to try and kill Godzilla with the mines. But they only have 2. So the first one, they let out, and it blows up in Godzilla's face, but it isn't effective. Second, but it does get Godzilla's head to come to the surface. It, like, blows up on his dorsal fins. And when his head comes to the surface, they send another mine in. And this sequence was very possibly the coolest in the entire movie. Like, this chase sequence with Godzilla chasing a boat. They send another mine in, and it explodes. Like, it goes into his mouth and explodes. And it, like, blows off half of his head. And then he, like, his head, like, reforms, and it looks real cool. And then another boat arrives and starts attacking Godzilla. And that boat gets promptly destroyed by Godzilla's atomic breath. And so, apparently they're airlifted, but the mine that got blown up in Godzilla's mouth was also, like, blown up in their face. So the character has a real bad head injury now. We're never really told what it was. Probably a concussion or something. But he has, like, this severe PTSD from the war and Godzilla on Oda Island. So he's, like, he's real sad and stuff. And he starts having, like, these panic attacks and stuff around the girl that moved in with him. And eventually the girl also gets a job. This is before the Godzilla attack. And the kid is babysat by the lady that was at first mad at Koichi. But yeah, she gets a job out in a different part of Japan. And of course, that part of Japan is attacked by Godzilla next. And so this next Godzilla sequence is one of the most awesome sequences in the entire movie. He picks up a train, and which is not unusual for a Godzilla movie. But this time you see the people inside. They're, like, all falling out and stuff. And the girl that moved in with him is inside the train. And she has to, like, hold onto a bar until she's over the ocean. And she drops down into it. And then they are... Oh, yeah. Godzilla decides, since they're attacking him again, to use his atomic breath for the second time in the movie. And this time you actually see how he powers up to it. His dorsal fins, like, come out of his spine and tail and stuff. And they, like, start radiating blue. And the entire movie goes completely silent for, like, 10 seconds maybe. And then Godzilla's atomic breath goes off. And then there's this really loud explosion. And in this movie, you definitely care for the characters. So you know they're in danger here just because of how powerful this atomic breath is. Like, so whenever the atomic breath goes off, it, like, explodes really far in the distance, but, like, smoke and rubble is flying in the direction of the main character and the girl. The main character came to try and save the girl. And so, yeah. And whenever the rubble's flying towards them, the girl pushes the guy into the alley, Koichi into an alley next to them, and she just goes flying. I almost laughed, but also that sequence in the movie was really sad. But whenever she gets flung away, like freaking Goat Simulator ragdoll mode, she is thought to be dead. And so he goes home, and this part literally punched me in the gut so hard. The kid asks, "Where's mommy?" And that part literally almost made me cry because of how, like, brutal it was. But, yeah. And then they come up with this plan to stop Godzilla. And it's, like, they're going to sink him using bubbles, I guess. And they're going to bring him back to shore using inflatable things. And the pressure change should kill him. And, yeah. That's their goal. So the rest of the movie is basically spent preparing for that. But the kamikaze pilot, the main character, one mechanic from Oda Island actually survived because that was where the thing is. And the main character is trying to get the mechanic to come back and fix up this really nice plane. And it's eventually revealed that the main character is going to fly the plane into Godzilla's mouth to explode Godzilla completely, because it's like everything non-vital for the plane to fly replaced with like guns and nukes and stuff. And then it's finally time for Godzilla to come back, and he ends up going to this like farm, and that part was really cool, like him destroying the farm, but they need him back out into the ocean. So Koichi flies the plane and shoots Godzilla and gets his attention, and Godzilla starts chasing him, and this sequence is also really great. And they, like, plunge Godzilla. They capture Godzilla and push him down like they were supposed to, and then they bring him back up, but it isn't enough. So the character does actually kill Godzilla. Does fly his plane into Godzilla's mouth, but it turns out there was also an ejection thing, which was a cliche, but I was fine with it because I really liked the main character. And so he's on a parachute and he lands on one of the ships that they used to sink Godzilla. And then it's revealed that the girl was alive in the hospital the entire time. So the entire family's back together. So yeah, that was the end of the movie. I thought it was an amazing Godzilla movie. It was a little weird that they decided to keep the characters alive, but I can see why. I really liked Godzilla's design and how they decided to like all come together to take him out. And this movie, much like the original, wears its anti-war, like, its message on its sleeve. The original is more of anti-A-bombs, and this one's more anti-war. So that was interesting. And it's like touches on these really dark concepts while also being a really fun, like, Godzilla monster movie, and somehow it blends it perfectly. So, yeah. This movie is easily one of the greatest Godzilla movies of all time. Like, every single Godzilla sequence, I was literally on the edge of my seat, because I was loving the Godzilla action, but I was also terrified for the main characters. And the kid was unexpectedly effective in making it sadder. But this movie isn't necessarily all sad. It also is has some very happy parts. And you feel happy whenever there's happy parts and sad whenever there's sad parts. This movie, unlike the Monsterverse, gets you to really care about the main characters. It's easily the best Godzilla movie of all time. And this is not recency bias or anything, which sometimes I do have recency bias, and that's why I mostly decide not to watch, not to make things based on, make podcast episodes based on movies I've seen in the theater. But this one was so good that I know for a fact that my opinion of it is not going to go down. This is going to be one of those movies, you don't go around really showing people your GMKs or All Monsters Attack or anything. You show them this movie, you show them Shin Godzilla if you want to get them into Godzilla. You show them the original 1954 classic. It's better than the original movie. And the original movie is widely regarded as one of the best horror movies of all time. It isn't really a horror movie, but it also is. I don't know. you guys see where I'm going if you've seen the original one. But yeah. So guys, tell me what you thought of this movie. Whenever I try get this podcast on Spotify, I'll leave a poll or like a reply thing, question thing, about this, yeah, definitely. I don't know what I'm talking about. But this movie just has so many good moments and so many, amazing things that happen in it. It's like, if you showed someone from 1954 that had just seen the original movie, their heads would explode. It's just that good. I'm not even joking about that, too. Their heads would literally explode. Or, drop down into their chest and then come back out. And because of the pressure drop, their heads would be frozen. But, yeah. I give this movie an easy 10 out of 10. Not just ranking it as a Godzilla fan, but as a movie fan in general. This movie is just that good. Moving on, I am going to give you now we're going to cover the next 2 episodes of Adventure Time. Sorry I didn't spend very much time on this review, but just want to try and get this episode out kind of quickly. Alright, I just watched episode 4 of season 1 of Adventure Time, Tree Trunks. I have always had mixed feelings on Tree Trunks because she is a weird character. I mean, I like her most of the time, but sometimes she gets on my nerves. But in earlier episodes, she isn't as bad. She's actually pretty fun. In later seasons, she starts to kind of annoy me more. In early episodes, she's just this wholesome, grandma. And I love it. So, this episode, she decides that she wants to eat the crystal apple. And so Finn and Jake are like, yeah, let's do that. And the funny thing is, Jake has no judgment at all. The dog with magical powers decides to let Finn the human, a 12-year-old kid, fight a freaking snake monster instead of just doing it himself. So, that was pretty funny to me, actually. And Tree Trunks, she just keeps messing things up. She gets Finn all jacked up, that's how he describes it at least. And but earlier episodes of Adventure Time were just all really wholesome, and I love them all. And so, yeah, I think the first episode that I wasn't, a huge fan of was season 1, episode 6, which is The Jiggler, or episode 8, I can't remember exactly. But, yeah. Alright, let's move on to season 1, episode 5. Also, real quick, something I forgot to mention. Tree Trunks just kind of explodes at the end. Anyways, on to season 1, episode 5. Season 1, episode 5 is titled The Enchiridion, and this is probably my favorite of, the original 5 episodes, I guess. I don't know. I just think of them as, a 5-episode collection. I don't know. But, yeah. This one is just a classic Finn and Jake story of Finn going and getting the Enchiridion. And the Enchiridion actually comes back in a big way later in the story. But yeah, Finn has to pass through many trials. He helps out these gnome things or whatever, but then the gnomes go and kill a bunch of old ladies, which is interesting. And so Jake just freaking gets so mad and puts them back in the lava. And that part made me laugh. And then a big ogre eats Jake after he was trying to comfort Finn. And so Finn steals the ogre's dollar and then kicks the ogre in the gut and makes him puke back up Jake, and it's really gross. Then they fly away to the top of the mountain where the Enchiridion is and give the ogre back his dollar, obviously. And then Finn kills a heart beast that this guy showed him in his head, but then refuses to kill an ant because it isn't evil. And then Manish Man gives him the Enchiridion, and Fen reads a chapter about how to kiss princesses. And Princess Bubblegum gets mad at him because he won't tell her what it says. Yeah, that's the episode. I like this episode a lot. I think it really encompasses the entirety of Adventure Time. And it's easily one of the best episodes of the entire show. So much happens in just an 11-minute runtime. I strongly suggest this episode if you want to start out. But yeah, I give this episode and the other, I give Tree Trunks a 6 out of 10, and this an 8 out of 10. No, a 9 out of 10. I'm starting to have to rethink my Slumber Party Panic ranking because so many episodes are better than Slumber Party Panic, and I ranked Slumber Party Panic so high. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. Sorry this episode was shorter than expected, but I'm not very good at talking for a long time about Godzilla, just anything like that I haven't seen within the past 10 minutes. So yeah, thanks for watching. Bye. I meant thanks for listening. Anyways, thanks. Bye.